Kohelet, Perek Zayin, chapter 7, Pasuk Tet Vav. This is a very important topic. It is related to the Mazal. We've spoken a little bit about Mazal in the past, but Shlomo Melech throughout Kohelet actually touches on this topic, because if one has even a basic understanding of how this works, life would take on a completely different meaning. And understanding a little bit how Mazal works would give us a tremendous amount of clarity in many areas of life. One who has a basic understanding, I say basic because it's a big subject, a basic understanding of this topic, Mazalot, or Goral Ha'adam, one's destiny, he will have the answers to many questions. When you have the answers to many questions that people have, there's less doubts, there's less issues, in other words, it's easier to function. You'd be surprised on how much of a difference it will make if we had a better understanding of why certain things happen to people and how this all relates to Mazal. So let's begin with the first pasuk. He says, "Et hakol ra'iti bimei hevli." I've managed throughout his short life, he says, bimei hevli, through the few years, hevel, it's all vain. I managed, he says, "Et hakol ra'iti," to see everything. You know what I saw, amongst other things? He's not talking about traveling all over the world and seeing this mountain, that beach, this jungle. Besides observing all that he has observed about nature, about the world, he was a very knowledgeable person. Hashem gave him the gift of Chokhmah. And he was able to see things that most people don't pay attention to. Including, he says, Yesh tzaddik oved betzidko, yesh rasha marich bera'ato. I was able to observe how some of the most righteous people, you could imagine, truly righteous, not fake, Oved. Either they die at an early age, Oved meaning they disappear, they're gone, before their time even, before their allotted time. They just left the world at a young age. Oved could also be that they have tremendous financial losses. Oved, a loss. And to who's this loss occurring to? Of all people, to the tzaddik. V'yesh rasha marich bera'ato, and there are the wicked people, the evil doers, who exactly the opposite, marich. They continue to live for many, many years, even past 100 sometimes, and they continue to live a life of bera'ato, committing wrongs. In other words, wrongdoing, sins, or plain evil deeds. How could this be? This is the topic of tzaddik veralo rasha v'tovlo. This is the topic of how come, why is it that sometimes we see that the righteous suffer and that the wicked prosper. And we're not only talking about length of life, we're talking about financially. Wouldn't that make sense that those people who are good, those who are observant of mitzvot, should have it easy? Those that are not righteous, those who are wicked, should have it difficult? The plain answer, the simple explanation for this particular phenomena is, in order to enable free will, b'chira chofshit, things cannot be too obvious. Remember that. This is a world of free will. There is a certain degree of free will. We don't have free will in every area of life. You don't really choose your neighbors. You don't choose if somebody's going to sue you or not. That's up to him. When somebody has to go to court, he doesn't choose his verdict, no matter what attorney he hires. Regardless of your case, it's all bidei shamayim. It's all in the hands of heaven. The outcome of certain events that are beyond our reach, our control. And we've said that what is within our reach, what is possible for us to choose, is the way of life, how we conduct ourselves Do we observe mitzvot? Are we generous and kind to each other, etc.? So here we have an area that is beyond our control, and that is the mazal. And Shlomo Melech and the rabbis tell us that this mazal is not related to one's ma'asim, to one's deeds. As I just explained, it can't be. Otherwise people would do the right thing, like a child putting his finger in an outlet, electrical outlet. He would see that this is dangerous the first time around. Fire. If people would see right away that doing good brings good, doing bad brings bad, the whole world would be hopefully doing the right thing and staying away from bad things. Hashem wants there to be a balanced view, a balanced world, where people can exercise free will, where they can choose for themselves without really knowing the truth 100%. Not that he doesn't want them to know the truth, he wants them to figure this out on their own. But if things were to be obvious that there is a God that created this world, there's a God who runs the show, there's a God who's in charge, that our deeds are observed, recorded, and that there's an afterlife, obviously that would not enable complete free will. Mazal, that one's destiny, is a map. It's a map through which man and woman journey or travel through their life, and they make certain stops. And they have certain activities through the various stops that they make. And everyone has his own map, his own GPS, if we can call it that, embedded in him from the time of birth, which leads him in a certain way. It doesn't determine whether he will be righteous or wicked, that's his choice. But it leads him in a certain path, in a certain journey, that he thinks he's making the decisions, right, left, straight. No, he's not. It's all conducted from above. And it's very possible that we will observe people who are nice and kind falling in all kinds of holes, right? In other words, making mistakes that they didn't anticipate, doing all kinds of things that are totally beyond their control. And they're good people. And here you have people who are not so bad. Smooth ride. No bumps, nothing happening to them. And this has disturbed a lot of people, this topic. It's not fair. And even if you were to tell them, well, you can't make it too obvious, where's the fairness at least? Let it be neutral, that everybody's the same. Where's the fairness that the one who's good and kind and righteous has to suffer so much some of the time? It doesn't mean that all righteous people suffer, but it sometimes becomes difficult to comprehend. Why is he having such a rough life? His wife is sick. One of his children died. Chas v'shalom. He can't make ends meet. His livelihood is not what it could be according to his potential, according to his college degree. I mean, he has a master's, and he's not doing that. He can't find employment. And here's this other guy who never finished high school. Forget about college. He never finished. He didn't even finish elementary school. Let's make it even better, right? And he's a multimillionaire, not a millionaire, multimillionaire or billionaire. Why? How does this happen? No brains, by the way. He has no brains. Don't think it's the brains. Some people don't go to college, but they have brains. No, he has no brains. You know people like that?
Yes.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah, a lot of them from Esfahan.
They're very, very rich, no brains. What do they have instead of brains? Mazal. You don't need to have brains to have mazal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have mazal, you can have lots of brains. You can have 2 PhDs. It doesn't mean anything. Either you have mazal or you don't have mazal. Now this mazal, when was it established? When has it been determined what the mazal of this individual will be? This girl, this boy? It's determined before he's born. It's determined at the time of conception. Rabbis tell us there's a malach, there's an angel that basically is involved in placing this neshama, this soul, in a particular mazal when it comes out of the mother's womb. So, what came first? His ma'asim tovim, his mitzvot, his good deeds, or his mazal? His mazal was established way before he made a decision later on in life if he wants to be a good person or a bad person. So the mazal will not change just because a person decided, you know what, I'm going to be a good man, I'm going to be an angel, or I'm going to be a wicked person. That will not affect the mazal. The mazal has nothing to do with it. People have to understand it. The one's mazal is already determined before he has had the chance to make it a choice of how he wants to live his life. And once he makes that choice, his mazal won't change necessarily. Somebody has a mazal, for example, is born in a mazal where there's no children. That's it. Either he or his wife, sterile. Right? They can't have kids. Do you think his conduct will make a difference? Usually not. What can make a difference, however, is that the Jewish nation, that's part of our tradition, is above the mazal. Above the mazal only means that we are able sometimes, through our prayers, through our repentance, through charity, to modify the mazal, if Hashem agrees that it's in our best interest to change the mazal. And if Hashem says, you know what, you're better off just having the mazal you have, you know, then of course things won't change. But if Hashem does accept our prayers and our repentance and says, you know what, I'm going to change your mazal from this point on, it can happen. People, through various blessings they have received from big tzaddikim, through their various efforts that they've made to become better individuals, they succeeded in changing their mazal for the better. But as you will see soon, the mazal is usually a certain plan that is for the best for that individual. This mazal has in it, consists of three things. It consists of tikkun, it consists of nisyonot, and it consists of ashlama. I'll explain each one of them. When an individual is born and he's given a journey, a mission in life, this is what you need to accomplish. He's given the tools to accomplish that mission. He's given, Baruch Hashem, physical legs, hands, eyes, right, to be able to function in this world. Hopefully he will get married, hopefully, and he will have a partner to help him accomplish the mission. He will hopefully have some job, some occupation that will provide for him too. All of this is basics. The actual mission has been determined many, many times depending on how he lived his life in the previous Gilgul, in the previous reincarnation. In a previous reincarnation, he may have not done something that he should have done, or he may have done something that he should not have done. Okay? So, the coming life, the next time around, he will be given a chance to repair the damage that was done before, or to fulfill or complete that which was not done, that should have been done. So we have a tikkun. Tikkun means to repair that which was damaged. We have hashlama, to complete that which is lacking. Then we have a third component called nisayon, a test or a challenge. The man was a miser. He didn't give any charity, or very little charity. He may be given a similar challenge this time around, where he will be given lots of money, and let's see how he uses it this time, in order to repair that lifetime's, I guess, in order to remedy what he did wrong in the previous lifetime. He will be given a chance through a challenge of sorts that will allow him to fix, to remedy the situation. So the mazal contains in it all these three components: why people live where they live, why they end up doing what they're doing, why they marry who they marry. The circumstances that envelop their life has to do with previous life. So there's a connection between the last life, the Gilgul, in this life, the reincarnation, as to what has to be accomplished. And sometimes the mazal is poverty. Sometimes the mazal is wealth. There's all kinds of mazalot. This is what Shlomo Melech says. I saw all of it. I saw all kinds of mazalot, all kinds of situations that one may not have any understanding, because we don't have a direct line to ask him, Why is he going through such a rough time? He's such a gentleman. He's so good. He's so nice. Why? Why so difficult life? Going to hospitals with his children, chas v'shalom, just suffering so much. Every job, he can't hold a job. And he's such a nice man. This area of difficulty, of understanding, was extremely difficult, especially before the Zohar came out. When the Zohar was printed, when shiurim on Kabbalah became public, they used to be private. A lot of this knowledge came out in the open. Because the Zohar speaks about Gilgul. Before the Zohar, people thought, what are you telling me, Gilgul? That's Hinduism. They speak about reincarnation. By the way, you know where Hinduism took it from? Where did they get it from? It used to be common knowledge before. It was all from the Torah, all from the Kabbalah at least, from the mysticism in the Torah. But it was private. It was not publicized. That which is mystical in nature was not known by everyone, at least not in detail. So once the Zohar was published and we saw this, that this is part of Judaism, that this is part of our Torah, it made sense. It explained so many things. We now have a better understanding of why this individual, who doesn't deserve all this pain and suffering, is going through hell b'olam hazeh. He's really going through a tremendous hardships. And we have no idea because we don't know what his life was like before, in a previous lifetime. We don't know who he was, what he did to go through this. We are only trained one thing. Besides knowledge of this area, we are all trained, Gamzula Tova, it's all for the good. We're trained that this is a kapara and atonement. We're trained that this is all from God. But the why behind it, nobody knows. We're told not to ask. If you ask too much, they take you upstairs, and they'll explain to you upstairs. We don't want to go upstairs too soon. So we're told, don't ask. Parashat Hazinu, which we'll be reading soon, that tells us very clearly, Atzur Tamim Paolo, Yichol Derachar Mishpat, Ele Munah Ven Abel Tzadik V'Yasharu. God is complete. His ways are complete. There's no corruption in his ways. He's righteous in all his deeds. Well, how do you explain this then? How do you explain the Holocaust? The Holocaust, 6 million Jews, of which 1 million were kids under the age of bar mitzvah, that you don't even count their sins under bar mitzvah. What about that? I might as well mention this additional fact, since we're already talking about this topic. In Parshat Bechukotai, in the Torah, it says, if you follow my statutes, you'll have rain on time, you'll be prosperous, and you'll have no enemies, no war. If you don't follow, you're going to have a hard time in all those areas. The weather won't cooperate, you'll have continuous challenges from your neighbors, war, just about anything. In other words, they'll complain about everything and anything. And the economy, of course, will not do well. So, on the one hand, we see from Parshat Bechukotai that if we want to know how things are, if we are doing our job or not, take a look at these areas, and they will be indicators of if Hashem approves of our ways or not. Is he upset or not? Well, just look around. Are you having trouble with the enemy? Are you having enough rain? Are you prospering? Or is there a lot of unemployment? There's a lot of troubles. Just look at the situation today in the world. Look at Israel too. It's not, Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of good things happening there. But there's also hardships and trouble and difficulties. Why? Obviously we're doing something wrong. Unfortunately, I've yet to see a day in the Knesset when somebody will get up and say, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing something wrong. Not in managing the day-to-day affairs of the country, but in our relationship with God. There's no rain, no problem. They say, let's import water from Turkey. I think in English there's a saying, you're barking on the wrong tree, something like that.
You're barking up the wrong tree.
Up the wrong tree. What does Turkey have to do with the problem? You're the problem. Go to him, not to Turkey. Right? We're having trouble with the Palestinians. America, please help us. What does America have to do with it? First of all, America won't help you all the time. Right? Europeans, we have to be in good terms with them. It has nothing to do with anything. they'll hate you no matter what you do. You'll always be wrong. The Jew will always be wrong. Why? Because we're actually doing something wrong, but not with them, with him. So Parshat Bechukotai seems to be indicative, or it basically says that you can see a reflection of your ma'asim, of your deeds, from what is happening around you. Okay, good. But when it comes to an individual, not a nation, you would never know that. There may be no indicators. Shimon, there's no Shimon here, so I can use the name Shimon, right? Shimon has it all. He has a 6,500 square foot home in Bel Air, at least 6,500, right? He has a Ferrari and a Lamborghini, right? He has a second home in Palm Springs. He has a third home in Jerusalem. He has a good life. Doesn't put on tefillin in the mornings. Doesn't keep Shabbat. Does not eat kosher. His wife does not go to the mikveh. His kids are not in a Jewish school. What a life. He's not doing anything. He doesn't even fast on Yom Kippur, by the way, either. Forget about Hanukkah, lighting Hanukkah. Doesn't even fast on Yom Kippur. Let's take another individual. And his name is Moshe. Moshe is so righteous, he goes to the mikveh every day before he goes to pray. Shh. Only big tzaddikim do that. It's very special. If you can make it every day to the mikveh, very nice. You don't need to, but it's very special. He prays Netz, Vatikin. You know what that is? Early in the morning, right away, he gets up. Says the entire Tehillim every day. Not just one chapter. That's at least 2.5 hours it takes, even if you're fast. The entire Tehillim every day. I knew people used to do that. Doesn't speak Lashon Hara, doesn't slander, gossip, doesn't hurt anybody. He's very honest. He's charitable. He's kind. He's devoted husband and a reliable friend. Good man. Let's look at his life. Very difficult. Barely making it. Not enough money to feed his kids. He has to beg for help. He's not too healthy, or one of his siblings or one of his children is not healthy. All kinds of issues and troubles afflicting him, right and left. Just got a car. He just bought a car. Oh, Baruch Hashem, he was just able to buy a car. A week later, the head gasket went. That's $2,000 just there to fix it or to buy another car. That's not, you think that's it? No. His dentist discovered that he needs 4 root canals. Then his wife has other issues. I mean, one after another, day after day, month after month, year after year, the troubles are never ending. And there are people like that. Now, he may have good kids. He may have a normal marriage. But all around it, it's very difficult. Very difficult. Why? Where's the fairness? So here, on the one hand, I told you, Parshat Bechukotai appears to be obvious. And here, it's not so obvious. Why? Even though this is not so much part of the topic here, but it's a very important chiluk. We have to make this distinction. When it comes to Am Yisrael as a nation, Hashem does not want us to assimilate, chas v'shalom, and to lose our direction. As a nation, as a people, we must know right away if things are right or wrong. He's going to let us know very, very strongly and almost immediately. Individuals, of course Hashem lets them know from time to time too. But as a whole, they're not told immediately. The system that directs the individual, his mazal, is different than the system that directs the nation. The nation has to be continuously aware of how our relationship is with God. The individual himself, in order to enable for him to have complete free will, he has a different kind of a system where things are not so obvious right away. And it appears to us that he's getting away with it, the wicked man, and that the righteous are simply suffering. Now that we have a better understanding through Kohelet, through the Kabbalah, through the Zohar, that there is something called reincarnation, that there is an explanation for all these things. It's not random. There's no random. In Judaism, there's no such thing as random, a mikra that just happens haphazardly, by chance. There's no such a thing. Everything is from above. We finally come to see that there's somebody or something behind the scenes, God, who's running the show. Nothing happens for no reason. As the Hasidus explains, that even a leaf from a tree falling down here instead of there is by Ashgacha Pratit, by divine intervention, divine providence. Why did it fall here and not there? There's a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. But those of us who may not have had this upbringing or this kind of an education, first of all, they will find this amazing and amusing, maybe. You know, is this really true? Yes, it's 100% true. And as I told you in the very beginning, if you understand this and you accept this, life is very, very different. When something happens and you miss your plane, you will say, it was meant to be like that. As long as, of course, you didn't walk out of your house at the last minute. You know, you need a certain amount of time to go to the airport. So as long as you don't cause your own, obviously your own mistake, then you can't attribute it to just a chance. Oh, traffic. No, it's all Mishamayim. This is what he talks about over here, that he has observed this kind of individuals, and he doesn't explain it very, very much in detail, but the commentaries, especially Yonatan ben Uziel, tells us that all of this that we see, that is hard to explain, that has to do with Tzaddik V'Rana Rasha V'Tovlo, is directly linked to one's mazal. The mazal is what determines the kind of lifestyle that people will have. Now, it is also possible that Hashem will take a tzaddik before his time because he sees that this young man is growing up fine, he's a good boy, good girl, but a few years down the road, they're going to deteriorate. Something terrible is going to happen, and they're just going to go off the derech, they're going to deviate. So Hashem sometimes takes a person before his time. He leaves this world earlier, in order that he should leave the world as a righteous, as a tzaddik, and not leave the world later on at an old ripe age of 80, but as a wicked man. Hashem sees that this man or woman, where they are placed, where they are living, because of the surroundings, they will be exposed to all kinds of elements that are no good, and they will be swept away, and therefore because it's detrimental for them to stick around, they will not succeed in controlling themselves. I'd rather take them now. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, of course, Hashem can make it change locations. We don't know why he chooses this over that. That's only Hashem knows. But sometimes people leave this world in order not to deteriorate, not to become worse. This is very similar to the following concept. Imagine you bought a tree, a plant in a nursery, and you're not such an expert on where to plant it. So you put it in your backyard in a nice location, you find a spot, you dig a hole, and you put it. You follow the instructions. You think you did. You put water, every so often, it's deep enough, the roots grow, but after a while it just doesn't do well. Either it dries out, or it just doesn't do well, doesn't grow well, it doesn't give out the flowers it's supposed to give out. What do you think is the mistake? Where lies the problem? Anybody want to guess?
Wrong location.
Wrong location. But what does wrong location mean? What's wrong with a location? What could be wrong with a location for plants?
Has no mazal.
No light.
No,
It doesn't either it's
light or no light.
right. Either it's a plant that doesn't doesn't need that much light, and it's too sunny in that location, or it's just the other way around. It needs the sun, and it doesn't have the sun. You put it in the shade. Certain plants do better in the sun. Certain plants do better in semi-shade. What's called filtered sun. So besides exposure to light or lack of exposure, you have the type of soil. It needs to be some plants need to be very well irrigated. And if you have a soil that is very clayish, it's not too good for certain plants. They will not do well there. You have to add fertilizers. You'll have to somehow replace the soil with other soil just to make it work. So, okay, fine. So you finally realize that you were told by a neighbor, by a gardener, listen, this is not a good place. So what could you do? If it's early on and the plant did not become a big tree, you can uproot it, right? Remove it from that location and place it in a different location. I've done that. No problem. Right? When is it a problem? If it's become a big tree. You can move a big tree too. The problem is you're going to have what's called a shock. The plant or the tree, if it's already matured in one location, it can get shocked from a new location unless you know how to do it very, very well. It's not simple. It's not easy. Not always recommended. When Hashem sees that a person did not do well in a particular location, He transplants him. Takes him from this world and brings him back. Let's take a quick example. You have a nice couple. His name is Shimon and her name is Esther. They were engineers, and they went to work for a Russian company in Siberia, and they had children there. Those children grew up without Torah, without Judaism. So when that child will go upstairs, they're going to ask him, listen, you want a ticket to Olam Haba? You need a ticket. What is your mitzvot? Masim Tovim. You didn't do anything. Well, my parents went to Siberia, and I grew up in Siberia. I said, you're right. I'm going to transplant you next time, Hashem says, bring you back. Next time you're going to be in Mea Shearim, or in Bnei Brak, right? You're going to be in a better location, so you won't have that excuse. That occurs all the time for those individuals who grew up in places that it's not their fault. They didn't have a chance to be exposed to any Judaism. So in the same way it happens after a full lifetime, it could also happen in a short lifetime, where Hashem sees that at this particular area and location, it will be detrimental for that young man or young woman to continue within this family, within this place. And sometimes Hashem just takes them and removes them. Why did he or she come to begin with into this life? We don't know. It could be that the parents, brought down this neshama for some reason, for a certain amount of time, and that's it. But after a while, Hashem, of course, is the one that makes the decision. What's best for this individual? And it could be what's best for him is to leave and not to be around. Imagine if you were told right before the Holocaust, listen, you have a choice. It's 1938, on the eve of World War II. In Mashamayim, they give you a choice. You can live. You're going to go through 5 or 6 years of hell, through 3 concentration camps. You'll almost die. You'll be starving from hunger. They give him a real good description. After you come out, Baruch Hashem, you settle down, you'll move to America, to the Big Apple, as they call it, New York, whatever. You'll get married, you'll have children. Or you have another choice. It's 1938, you won't go through it. Just die now. Just leave the world now. You'll be born again later on in the 1960s into another family. You will have a new life, this time in sunny California. Which one would you prefer? It's a difficult choice. Do you really want to go through all this Gehenom in World War II? Sometimes it would just be better to leave. The nisyonot, the challenges, the difficulties are so great, so difficult, that not everybody would be able to tolerate it. So Hashem knows what's best for us. He really knows what is really better for us, and therefore He makes the decision for us. We can't make the decision sometimes. Now, that's the answer, that's the explanation for a tzaddik, a good, righteous person, why certain things happen. But what about the Rasha? Why would Hashem allow the Rasha to continue on in this world for many, many years? He reached the age of 102, even though that's a long life. It's longer than the average. Why? Or it was an average age of 80-something. but he was successful in his business. His real estate did very well. He barely had any vacancies. That's mazal, by the way. It's not because you have a good manager necessarily. It's plain mazal. He knew when to buy, when to sell. Not because he went and took courses in real estate. Mazal. And he does nothing good as far as his deeds, as far as his relationship with people. He's a very tough individual. And he has a long life. Why? There are three possible explanations. Number one, Hashem says there's a chance he may do teshuvah. I know him. I know deep down in his neshama there's a potential there for teshuvah. And Hashem sometimes allows him a longer life just to give him that chance to come back and repent. Number two, it's very possible that he did once upon a time a very special mitzvah. And he's being rewarded in this world, in this lifetime, so that upstairs he doesn't get any reward. Hashem says, you know what? Most of your deeds are no good, but there's one good deed that you did once upon a time. I'm going to reward you here. I'm going to give you a long life. I'm going to give you all the money you want. But that's it. That's all you're going to get. You have nothing upstairs. So Hashem rewards the Resha'im, the wicked, sometimes in this world. Possibility number three, that Hashem knows that good children will come out of him. Tzaddikim, it is possible, believe it or not, that an individual who's not so good, he's not kind, he's not charitable, he doesn't keep mitzvot, somehow will bring into this world children that are righteous, children that are good. Hashem says, I need to allow those children to come into this world before I take this man. So sometimes Hashem allows this man, who's going to be a father of good children, to continue to live. And there's also something called zchut avot, the merit of one's forefathers, that some people have, the merit for many generations. They're successful because of the merit of somebody in the past. They can last for several generations, even though this guy now doesn't deserve it, but because somebody in the past deserved it, that lasts for his descendants for several generations. These are just some of the ideas and examples of how mazal works. Then you have, in one's lifetime, situations that happen occasionally. There's kitrugim. A person may have a good mazal, everything fine, but all of a sudden things are not going well for him. A kitrug is an accusation. Let me give you an example of a possible kitrug. I don't know for sure if it's a real kitrug, but a possible kitrug. You have a real estate broker who lately has a very difficult time. Not that he's not making any deals. He's making deals all the time. People are coming to him and signing, hiring him. He's putting their house for sale. Right before it closes, the deal, it falls apart. Either the buyer backs out, the seller backs out, the lender doesn't want to lend. Okay. Right before it closes. And this didn't happen once. It happened several times. Wow. If things happen too many times, rabbis tell us, tefashpesh b'me'asim shelcha, examine your deeds. This is not a mazal. Nobody has this kind of a mazal. You sell one. At least sell one a year. But if none of them are selling, you're not making commission on any of them, and it's happening in such an unusual way that at the last moment it somehow falls apart. Can't you see that this is mir shamayim? Something's wrong. You know, there could be ayin hara sometimes, the evil eye. There could be all kinds of things, but there are many times something called kitrugim, accusations. What is an accusation? A person's mazal is okay, but he recently did something very, very bad, terrible. He may have slapped another Jew in his face. You know, he may have cursed someone. He may have done something very, very, I guess indignant would be a word for it. And because he's a good person, a good neshama, they say upstairs, this is really, really not nice. I mean, based on his character, based on his level of tzitkut, of righteousness, this is really beneath him for him to do that. He needs an immediate kapara. He needs an immediate atonement. He needs to be told right away that he needs to repent and correct this. That there's something that he needs to fix right away. So there's something that is mekatreg, something that accuses him, and that steers up judgment against him in a very, very powerful way, so that he should realize, I must have done something. So this is also for his benefit, that he should wake up. So there are averot, there are sins, there are certain things that can accuse. And if they accuse, they exact punishment right away. They demand justice right away. And that's, again, to our benefit, so that we should begin to look for ways to correct it. There are mitzvot, on the other hand, that act as protectors. What's a protector, or what's a mitzvah that can extend one's life? Honoring one's parents. Torah says, "Leman yarichu yavecha." So let's say this individual is not too good, doesn't observe anything, but this one mitzvah, like Esav, he's very strong in this area. Hashem says, you know what? You don't deserve it, but because of this one mitzvah, your life will be protected. What? Protected from what? He smokes. He has a bad habit. He smokes 2 packs a day. What would 2 packs do to an average individual with average genes? It will kill him after a while. I mean, you need a miracle to survive 2 packs every day from the age of 14, by the way. Not from the age of 20, 21. From the age of 14, he's smoking 2 packs. You know that? I mean, it's obvious. Look at the x-rays. Ask any doctor, what are the statistics of somebody who smokes 2 packs a day for him to live beyond 60? It becomes less and less. And this guy is into his 90s. It's unusual. And there are people like that, by the way, who have been smoking 2 packs a day and who have had a long life. I'm sure you heard of that. Remember George Burns? 100 with his cigar. It could be because of some mitzvah, hamegina, that protects him, that allows him to have a long life in many years, despite everything else, despite the habits, despite the averot, despite everything, despite his conduct. It's possible. There are mitzvot that protect people from danger, that lengthen a person's life, where under normal circumstances he would not live so long. So that is why you see all kinds of situations, and sometimes you wonder, how come? I just gave you a few examples of why these things happen. Okay, we're done with this. Now let's go on to the next pasuk. Al tehi tzadik harbe ve'al titchakam yoter lama tishomem. Now Kohelet goes on to a completely different area. Don't be overly righteous, even though I just told you a little bit about righteousness, but don't be overly righteousness, don't be overly smart. Lama tishomem. Tishomem means, why should you deprive yourself? Why should you ruin it for yourself? Why should you lose out in life? What is he talking about here? What's wrong with being a tzaddik? Here he's talking about kanaut, kitzoniyut, people who want to overdo something too much. An example would be prohibiting yourself from doing something that the Torah says is completely mutar. An individual may come to the conclusion and say, you know what, I see that getting married produces all kinds of problems, has the potential for, I'm not going to get married. Or I'm going to stay away from wine, I'm going to stay away from meat, I'm going to deprive myself of all these pleasures that have potential for trouble. The Torah says, you can't do that. You have 613 commandments, isn't that enough? You want to add more prohibitions? People have a hard time with the 613. You need more? And that is why a Nazir, you all know what a Nazir is? One who abstains from drinking wine and from becoming impure, in contact with the dead. He brings a sacrifice when he's done, because the Torah calls him a choteh. Torah considers him a sinner. Even though at times it may be a good idea for discipline purposes to abstain, to go on a diet for a number of days, still the Torah says you're going to bring a sacrifice, because why should you deprive yourself of wine? Kiddush on Shabbat. Chagim, you eat meat. It's a mitzvah to eat meat on Shabbat and on the Hagim. How could you go without meat? Yeah, but I want to be a vegetarian. You can be a vegetarian Sunday to Friday, but not on Shabbat. Shabbat you shouldn't be. You want to enjoy Shabbat the way the Torah tells you to enjoy it. Unless there's health reasons, there's no reason to deprive yourself. You don't want to overdo it, overindulge, then that's fine. You don't have to have rib steak every day, right? You can have ground meat too, kebab, right? Yeah, anything, right? Just don't deprive yourself of these things. These things are permissible, they're good, and as long as you don't overdo it, they're healthy too. Anything Hashem made in the world, you should know, is fine, is healthy. Unless it's poisonous, obviously. Hashem made a coffee bean. For what purpose? For the birds? No, for us. Marijuana too. For medication. They use it in medication, right? Everything is good as long as you know how much to have of it and when to have it. The problem is that people overdo things. That the extremes are no good. So here he's saying, Al ti tzaddik harbe, when it comes to depriving yourself of all the things that Hashem brought into this world, you don't have permission to do that. That's one interpretation of the pasuk. Don't deprive yourself of all there is in this world that may be permissible. Don't make promises, nedarim. I'm not going to do this for 30 days. I promise not to do this. A neder is very dangerous if you forget about your promise and you don't fulfill it, or you break it. Say b'ni neder. Unless you really have no choice but to control yourself. Let's say a person has a bad habit with smoking, and he wants to make a neder to stop it. For every cigarette I smoke, $10 to tzedakah. That's going to become very expensive over time. If he knows that that's the only way to save him, he can do it. So there are exceptions of when you can make a neder. Otherwise, nedarim are not advisable. So we're going to be making hatarat nedarim, releasing our vows, right? Releasing ourselves from vows that we really didn't intend to make. And that's because vows and nedarim are problematic. One wants to do teshuvah and he has all these promises that are unkept, unfulfilled. It doesn't look good on his record. So he says, Shlomo Melech says, you want to volunteer and hold yourself back and make all these kinds of promises? Why? It's too risky, it's dangerous. Don't be overly smart. What's overly smart? Somebody who's very, very sick, very, very sick. You know that the halakha says he's allowed to eat in Yom Kippur? Very, very sick. Very, very sick. Dangerously sick. He wants to be a hacham. Try to fast anyway. You're being sinful. You're a sinner if you do that. Don't think that you can be smart on the cheshbon of the Torah. That's what he means. If this is the halakha, don't try to be a smart aleck here in thinking that you can get away with it, that you can do it nevertheless. Don't be extra mahmir, extra strict on yourself. There's a term that the rabbis use called chasid shoteh. He's a chasid, he's righteous, but he's a fool. What's an example of a chasid shoteh? He sees a woman drowning in the ocean, in the pool. She has no clothes on, or she's not dressed modestly, obviously, with a swimsuit. He says, "Oh, I can't touch her. I'm not allowed to look at her. I can't deal with this. This is a woman," the man says. You're a chasid shoteh. You're a fool, chas v'shalom, if you say that. We're talking about saving a person's life here. You look away from everything. You can't think about those things. The halakha says you better save your life. Otherwise you'll be guilty of not trying to do your best to save your life. These are examples of what Shlomo Melech says here. Don't be too smart against the halakha. Another example, of course, are the famous examples of Shaul HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech himself too. Don't think that you can take a chance when the Torah says don't take a chance. Shlomo HaMelech was told not to take too many wives. And all the kings are told this. And what was Shlomo HaMelech's attitude? It won't happen to me. Whatever the Torah says may happen to a king who marries too many women, it's okay. It won't affect me. I'll know how to deal with them. That's being silly. That's being too much of a chacham against the Torah. You think you can go against the Torah? The Torah says it's not advisable. It's not good. They will mislead you. He was misled. Shaul HaMelech had too much pity on Agag, even though it's Amalek. Exterminate them. Eliminate them. Get rid of them. They're your sworn enemy. Their kids will continue to be your enemy. Get rid of them. The Torah says, the Torah is compassionate. And here the Torah is telling us, eliminate every one of them, including their children, including their animals. What did the animals do? Because we don't want to have any pity for any zecher, for anything that is associated with Amalek, who is the greatest enemy of God, the sworn enemy of the Jewish nation. Right? An enemy that will always be around until Mashiach comes, who opposes anything which is divine. They're therefore a tremendous obstacle in our way, and we have to get rid of it. Otherwise, it's going to try to get rid of us. So, if he comes to kill you, you get him first. What, do you want to volunteer? No. Right? Defend yourself. So don't be overly compassionate. Don't show that, it may be okay. It's not okay. If the Torah says it's not okay, it's not okay. Don't be too smart. Don't try to be smarter than what the Torah is telling you to do. And the same is true with any challenges that a person may encounter. As it is, we have challenges all the time. Don't ask for them. We ask in our prayer, don't put me in a challenge. Don't take a chance. It won't happen to me. No, it's okay. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to go there. Nothing's going to happen. You never know. The Torah says it's not good. It's not advisable. Then don't outsmart that Torah. Don't think that you can be smarter. Another interpretation of Al Ti Tzadik Harbeh is when it comes to justice, judgment in the Din Torah, always try to make a settlement. Always compromise. Unless the halakha is so obvious and clear. Don't judge by the strict letter of the law. Otherwise, the two people that came to court will continue to be enemies. You're right, you're wrong. Now the judges are enemies too of the one who lost. What did you gain by saying what the halakha is and who's right and who's wrong? Try your best always to make peace. Compromise. Don't be too much of a tzaddik in trying to apply the letter of the law. This is what the halakha is. This is what the Shulchan Aruch says. What are you going to accomplish by that? If there is a way that you can bring peace and harmony by making a fair settlement, fair of course, then that should be your first choice. Another interpretation of Al Ti Tzadik Harbeh, don't consider yourself a tzaddik. In other words, don't consider yourself a righteous person that things may not happen to you, as we said before. It can happen to anybody who goes through a challenging situation. And the other explanation is, the person should not think of himself as a righteous and therefore not have to do teshuvah. Well, what do I have to fix? I have nothing to fix, you might think. Rosh Hashanah Kippur, I didn't do anything wrong this year. Never think of that. There's always something that may need to be repaired. Nobody should say that he's a tzaddik, complete tzaddik. All right, next pasuk. Al tirsha harbe ve'al tisachal lama tamut belo itecha. Now he's going in the opposite direction. I just told you not to be overly righteous. Now I'm telling you, don't be overly wicked. Overly wicked? Even a little wicked is no good. What does it mean? Al tirsha harbe. Don't be too much of a rasha. Ve'al tisachal, and don't be a fool. Lama tamut belo itecha. Why should you die before your time? What is he talking about over here? There are people who think that because they have already done some things wrong, okay, I'm already a rasha, I might as well do everything now. Right? He already ate taref. Yeah, why keep Shabbat? He already does not keep Shabbat. Why not go and live with a girl without being married to her? All kinds of things. Already, im kvar as kvar, as you say in Hebrew. If I'm already doing this, why not do this? And by the way, you should know that is how people who were once upon a time religious become irreligious. They drop one thing at a time, another thing, until they let go of everything. But usually that happens gradually, over time. Here, Shlomo Melech is telling us, don't look at yourself too much as a rasha. Al tirsha harbe. Even though you've made mistakes, it doesn't mean that you can now go on and continue. Try to fix it. As the Kabbalah explains, the greatest sin of a Jew is not that he committed a sin. It happens. You succumb to your evil inclination. that he doesn't make any efforts to repair it. No teshuvah, no attempt. What excuse do you have for that? One can come up with an excuse, you know what, I just couldn't take it. I succumbed to the Yetzer. All right, we can understand that. But why didn't you try to repair it? Why didn't you say, I'm sorry? Why didn't you show remorse? Why didn't you regret it? That's the problem. So al tirsha harveh, don't continue on with your bad habits, even though you may have had, it doesn't give you the excuse or the right to make it worse. For example, there's a story with the Gaon of Vilna. He was once staying over the house of someone, and all of a sudden a gentleman comes in and wants a drink. And this one who wanted a drink was a mumar. Mumar means that he basically stopped keeping all the mitzvot, didn't do anything. So the Gaon of Vilna tells the host, don't give him anything to drink until he makes a beracha. First let him make a blessing. So the gentleman became upset. He says, I'm a mumar. I don't believe in this. I don't do any of this. Why should I have to make a blessing? So the Gaon of Vilna says, listen, you may have committed many, many sins, but that in no way does that give you the right to continue to not do things right. Because when you head upstairs, you think that just because you were mehalel Shabbat, they will not make a cheshbon with you on the fact that you didn't put on tefillin, and the fact that you didn't make blessings. Everything is written. It doesn't mean that just because you're out of the camp, they don't analyze every single deed. They will analyze every single deed from the smallest to the biggest. He thought, because he was no longer living as a Jew, then he doesn't have to make blessings. No. When he heads upstairs, they're going to count every little thing, including the times he needed to make a beracha and he didn't make a beracha. As soon as he heard those words coming out of the Gaon of Vilna in such a serious and sincere way, it hit home, as they say. It had an impact on him, and slowly but surely, he came back and he did teshuvah. Incredible how these words were able to penetrate this man who basically abandoned everything and was not interested in nothing. But obviously there was something in his neshama that was still sensitive about these things, and if you say things in a certain way, you didn't really criticize him. He basically pointed out a fact that he didn't realize. Everything counts, everything matters. So, I have one individual who told me, I don't want to put on that tzitzit. No, it's a big mitzvah. Put on the tzitzit. I don't always eat kosher, he says. So what does one thing have to do with another? He says, well, I'm embarrassed. He says, I feel guilty. Here, I'm not doing this. How could I do this? I told him, that's the Yetzer Hara speaking to you. The two are not contradictory. You do whatever you can. Just because you succumbed here, you made a mistake here, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do this. You see, but that's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara tells him, you are a Rasha. You can't put on tefillin now. You can't put on the mezuzah in your home. How could you do that? If you do this, you can't do that. Who says so? Al tirsha harveh. Don't be overly wicked. Don't think of yourself as, that's it. I'm a Rasha. I shouldn't do anything. You do whatever you can. And hopefully, eventually, you'll do everything. But now, do whatever you can. You want to ask something? Yeah. V'al tihi sachal. And don't be a fool. What's a fool? Don't allow your habits to overpower you. Your foolish habits. Because lama tamud b'lo eitecha. Why should you die before your time? If a person makes foolish mistakes, sometimes he can leave this world before his time. As we said with smoking. Smoking has nothing to do with mazal. Smoking is called slow suicide. Slow suicide, he doesn't have to jump off the roof. He can kill himself slowly. The Torah says, "V'nishmartem me'od lenafshotechem." You have to watch your health. You have to be careful. Do your best. I know there are people who are skinny, and nevertheless they have lots of cholesterol. They don't eat, the meat, and they have heart attacks too. Obviously, it's not always a heart attack. Is not always as a result of overweight, and it could be the genes. It could be all kinds of issues. But still, one has to do his best not to contribute to his to ill health. So here in this pasuk, he's basically the simple understanding of his of al tirsha be al tisachal is that we said before al tzaddik harbe, don't overdo it on the righteous side, don't overdo it on the evil side. Now, of course, he's not saying that you should do a little bit, but he's saying don't indulge yourself too much either. Don't indulge yourself in doing things that are detrimental to your life, to your health. Okay, I think we'll just do maybe one or two more pesukim. Tov asher tehoz bazeh v'gam mizeh al tanach et yadecha. Now he says, you want a good life, you want a balanced life, you have a little bit of both. Tov asher tehoz bazeh v'gam mizeh al tanach et yadecha. Enjoy life and learn Torah. There was zeh v'zeh. Have a balanced life. We were talking about extremes before. We're talking about going to this extreme or that extreme. It's no good. Al tzaddik harbe, and deprive yourself of this world. And don't be a rasha too much either, of just indulging yourself, allowing yourself everything. In other words, hold on to this, live a good life, a normal life, live in a home, not in a tent, unless you're Gaddafi. You prefer your tent. Yeah. Live in a normal house, right? Yeah. Have nice furniture, do it in a reasonable way. Olam hazeh, enjoy it. Have a nice yard, flowers, plants. Why not? If you can afford it, of course, only if you can afford it. Do what you can to manage your life in a very pleasant, enjoyable way. V'gam mizeh al tanach yadcha. In other words, don't let go, of course, of the Torah either. You want to have a balanced life. You want to have both. You want to have Torah. You want to have prayer, you want to have mitzvot, you want to have Shabbat, Chagim. You want to have this life and you want to have this. That's a balanced way. But what about the troubles that can arise from pleasures and all kinds of things? This country has a big problem. It's called credit cards. You know what credit card has done to the average American? It has trained him to live above his means. Whereas without a credit card, you would only buy what you can afford. If you have money in the bank, you buy it. If you don't have it, you don't buy it. You hear people are buying things on credit and they don't really have the money. Then they're paying a lot of money for the interest, 18%, if not more. They're getting rich, all these credit card companies. And you'll get a lot of letters in the mail. You qualify. They want your business. They want you to buy. They don't like people who buy on credit and pay their bill when the bill is sent to them 30 days later. They want you to not pay it so they can charge you all this interest. They're against you. They're not for you. They think they're doing you a favor. They're doing you a disfavor. So people have gotten used to a lifestyle which is really very grand and very overindulgent in all things that are really not very necessary. And this has caused many, many problems, including divorces, believe it or not, all this materialism. We need to have a balanced life. It's good to have a little bit of olam hazeh. Why not? It says don't deprive yourself. On the other hand, you want to have the Torah too. You want to have the regular classes, you want to have the regular tefillah, you want to have all the mitzvot. And as far as making mistakes, don't worry. Ki yareh Elohim yitzeh et kulam. One who's God-fearing, hopefully, will always make sure that he doesn't make a mistake. He's a God-fearing person, analyzes. Am I doing the right thing or not? Is this permissible or not? Is this halachically correct or not? Does this have an ashgacha or not? Right? A person wants to go on a cruise. Alaska cruise. He wants to see the glaciers and look at the wonders of God. Good. But on the other hand, he's going to be missing out a minyan. He's going to be missing out Sefer Torah. Is it really worth it to go by yourself? If a whole group goes, maybe yes. Why not? It's beautiful, but you have to really think. Yereh Elohim, a God-fearing Jew, really analyzes, is this really productive? Is this really worth it? I didn't say it's asur, by the way. You can go on a cruise once in a while, you can go and enjoy. But you really want to think about it. How many times to do it? How much to do it? How many days? Is it really justified? What am I going to lose out as a result of this? So a Yerei Elokim, a God-fearing Jew, Yetzet Kulam, he's able to manage through life by having a little bit of both, because he will look at the pros and cons of everything. That's what it means, Yerei Elokim. He always examines his deeds before he does them, and he maintains a good balance. In other words, Shlomo Melech is telling us, do for your body, but also do for your neshama. Don't let go of the other. Don't ignore your neshama. Gam mizeh al tanach itedecha. If you're enjoying life, fine, but don't abandon, don't ignore your neshama. Your neshama has needs too. It needs Shabbat, it needs the Torah, it needs the Tefillah. So one who's Yerei Elokim, one who's God-fearing, hopefully will know the proper balance between the two. Very important, the Rambam says that a person should always go the middle way, the middle of the road, when it comes to midot, to characteristics. You can't go to any extreme. Extremes are no good. It says always train yourself to be in the middle path. Over generous is not too good. Skimpy and stingy and miserly is also not good. Middle of the road, charitable, kind, but you need money to survive too. You want to give your kids too. You don't want to give everything away, right? So always choose the middle path. One more drasha before we go to the next pasuk on this last pasuk. There are people who have preferences between learning what to learn. Some people like Chumash, some people like Mishnah, others like Halacha, others like Kabbalah, and so forth. The rabbis tell us in the Gemara, Tova shetechos b'zeh v'gam mizeh al tanach itedecha. Don't only learn Chumash, try to learn Mishnah too. Even though there may be some pros, some advantages, some benefits of learning one over the other, a Jew should always become familiar with other areas in Torah too. Don't just focus on one area of learning. Al tanachit yadcha. Don't let go of other areas that that may be interesting too. It may be important. So familiarize yourself and become knowledgeable in other areas of Torah as well. Don't limit yourself to just one area. And last but not least, the next pasuk tells us, "Chokhmah ta'oz lechacham me'asara shelitim asher yayu ba'ir." Chokhmah, wisdom, is the key. Wisdom is the key to strengthening oneself, to be able to overcome the Yetzirah, the urges that we have, and to hopefully prevent us from making too many mistakes. Even though people who are very smart have made mistakes, here he's talking about Chokhmat Torah. The Chokhmah of Torah is Ta'oz lechacham. It will give strength and encouragement and impulse to the Chacham, much more than Asara Shalitim Asher Yayu Ba'ir, much more than 10 rulers in the city. Now, if you don't learn the commentaries, you won't know what he's talking about. What 10 rulers in the city? So I'm going to just give you one interpretation of this, even though there may be another one. When a Jew learns Torah, when he fills his mind with Chokhmah, it acts as a stimulant. The Torah can be a stimulant for him to do teshuvah. In other words, without Torah, without guidance, one may not realize his mistakes, one may not realize that there's something to correct. This is what gives him strength to overcome his urges, his yetzarim, and it gives him a stimulant to awakening to do teshuvah, so that he should be able to control the 10 shalitim that are in the city. The 10 shalitim in the city is a Kabbalistic term that refers to the human body. The human being a small city of all kinds of entrances, through the eyes, through the mouth, through the ears. There's a lot going on in this city. Tremendous. If you were able to look at the human body or even the human cell through a very powerful microscope, you would see what's going on in this body. There's so much going on in this city. And there's 10 shalitim, there are 10 rulers, the senses, the various senses. Kabbalistically, there's 5 internal and 5 external senses. The senses, in other words, the touch, the vision, the hearing, the smell, and the taste, right? These are the chushim. These are the shalitim. In a way, they are rulers over us. They have their needs. And there's also internal hushim, or internal senses. So there are 10. And these 10 are very powerful. And in order to be able to control these senses, one needs chokhmah. As the rabbis tell us, en machshevet arayot, the thought of all kinds of immoral thoughts. People sometimes have a filthy mind. A filthy mind or bad thoughts can only come about when the mind is empty of Torah and chokhmah. If a person's mind will be continuously occupied with chokhmah and Torah, he doesn't have time for all this garbage in the streets to enter. It only invades the mind when the mind is empty of something else. You're sitting down and you're bored. Well, obviously, if there's boredom, all kinds of thoughts and imagination will enter the mind. The mind cannot be a vacuum for too long. It absorbs things from all kinds of places. So in order to prevent the mind from becoming invaded by all kinds of bad thoughts, including depression, by the way, occupy the mind with chokhmah. And that's what he says, chokhmah ta'oz lechacham, to the wise person, of course. It will give him the strength that he needs to be able to overcome any issues, any threats from the outside. And obviously this chokhmah will be a big help, even if a person in the previous pasuk was a big rasha, even though he may have done some terrible things. A chokhmah ta'oz, this chokhmah will enable him, will give him the strength and the impulse. It will give him the drive to want to have an interest in correcting his mistakes. So some people are not interested. That's the way they are. They've made the mistakes. There's no turning back. They say it's too late. All kinds of excuses. A person who learns chokhmah, who opens up a sefer, who learns Torah, goes to a shiur, he will say, wait a minute, I can always make a U-turn. It's never too late. Whoever said it's too late? Even at 84, 85, it's not too late. You can make changes even then. As long as you're healthy and as long as a person is breathing, he can make changes to his lifestyle. So that is why the chokhmah is so important, because it eventually, hopefully, will enable him to see things differently, and that will, of course, encourage him to do teshuvah. That is why the rabbis tell us a person should never lose not even one day without learning Torah. Not even one day. Every day makes a difference. Every day a person learns Torah, he has the vitamins he needs. And what do vitamins do for the body? They strengthen our immune system, so that we should not, chas v'shalom, have all these things invading our system and taking over. So what happens if a person nevertheless got very busy, he had to go to a wedding, he had to go to a brit milah, he had other commitments, and he just couldn't make that day his shiur? What should he do? Pick up a sefer and even learn for 5 minutes. But he usually learns an hour. No, the Yeshar Hara is going to tell you, that's it, the day's gone, forget it, you're tired, go to sleep, tomorrow's another day. No, don't lose even 5 minutes. Sit down and open up a book and say Tehillim or anything, 5 minutes, whatever you have until your eyes close. Because this 5 minutes will make a big difference in the following way. Number one, you didn't lose that day of Torah. You fulfilled the mitzvah. And you got the vitamins of 5 minutes. 5 minutes is better than nothing. But the Yetzer Hara will tell you, no, the day is gone, just forget it. After all, you did a mitzvah, you went to gladden the Chatan v'Kala, to make them happy. Ha'osek b'mitzvah, patur b'mitzvah. He'll tell you all kinds of things. You're busy, occupied with a mitzvah. You don't have to do the other mitzvah. He's right, the Yetzer Hara. But don't let him convince you of that, because even though he's right, he's not right. Because when it comes to Torah, if we lose one day, we have a tremendous loss that is irreplaceable. The day is gone, the day will never come back. Tomorrow is another set of challenges. Tomorrow is another day, yes. But what is gone is gone. Therefore, if this ever happens, remember the benefits of learning, remember the benefits of the Chokhmah, what it does to us, and don't give up. Even if it's only 5 minutes, you will see how much of a difference it will make. Thank you.